Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of the Strength for Your Purpose podcast. Really excited to have you here today. Got another great interview. We've had another really good run of interviews here. Been really excited to chat with all these people we've been talking with recently. And if it's your first time, listening or taking in this podcast, thank you. Really hope you enjoy the conversation you are about to take in. If you're a returning listener, also, thank you. Really appreciate your support and coming back and listening to more great conversations and chats here to hopefully help you strengthen your true purpose in life, whatever that might be. And I have been a bit of a fan from afar of today's guest for a while. Been connected with this individual on LinkedIn and really enjoying some of the things he's putting out there in his posts and his blogs, and very powerful, sort of inspiring stuff about leadership and empowerment. And I really wanted to share that with you all today. So I am so excited and pleased to be joined by Kevin Hancock, who is the CEO of one of America's oldest family businesses, which is Hancock Lumber, which is led by its 620 employees, operating 12 lumber yards, 3 sawmills, and a truss manufacturing facility in Maine and New Hampshire. Kevin is also an award-winning author and nationally recognized public speaker. He's written 3 books. The first one is Not for Sale: Finding Center in the Land of Crazy Horse. Then The Seventh Power, one CEO's journey into the business of shared leadership. And finally, 48 Whispers from Pine Ridge and the Northern Plains. Kevin is a frequent visitor to the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation in South Dakota and an advocate of strengthening the voices of all individuals within a company or a community through listening, empowering, and shared leadership. Kevin is also the founder of a non-organization called The Seventh Power, dedicated to advancing economic sovereignty for Native communities across America. Kevin, thank you so much for taking the time to join me on the podcast.
Philip, hello. I'm really happy to be with you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. As I said, I've been a fan from afar for a while, so really excited to chat a little bit about what you have going on. So, talking with you a little bit here before we get started, looking through your bio, it seems that you're obviously the CEO of Hancock Lumber, and that experience seems to have shaped a little bit more of what you're doing now, aside from just being the CEO of Hancock Lumber. So I'd love for you to talk to us a little bit about that trajectory. What was it about your time up to this point as the CEO of Hancock Lumber that has kind of led you to what you're really doing now and what you're really passionate about right now?
Sure. So, first, quickly, Hancock Lumber has a long story. Our company began doing business in 1848. So,
wow.
Before the first cannonball was fired in the Civil War, our company was in business right here at Maine, and I'm part of the 6th generation of my family to have the opportunity to work for and help lead the company. So that's been a great honor. I've been very lucky, but it's not been easy either. Nothing really is easy in life in the end. In 2010, right at the peak of the national housing and mortgage market collapse, I suddenly acquired a very rare neurological voice disorder called spasmodic dysphonia that I've never heard of. Has no known cause, no known cure. But long story short, during a very difficult time for our industry and company, as a CEO, I suddenly couldn't really talk.
Yeah.
Thing I'd always taken for granted and done a lot of upon reflection. So I had to quite quickly come up with a different approach to leadership that did not involve a lot of talking. When it's hard to talk, you quickly develop strategies for doing less of it.
Sure.
And mine, Philip, was to answer a question with a question, thereby putting the responsibility for speaking back on the other person. But
Mm,
picture this age-old scene at work. So people would come up to me all the time because I was the president or the quote unquote boss. People would come up to me with a question or a problem, looking for direction. Prior to my voice condition, I would always have given it, told people what to do. But now, because my voice didn't really work at the time, I started simply saying, that is a good question. What do you think we should do about it?
yeah.
He or she would then give me their answer. And then again, to protect my voice, I generally then followed up by saying, okay, that sounds good. Let's do that. And off he or she would go with his or her solution to the
Mhm.
problem they saw. Now, to tie this into leadership, what really struck me, having done this, say, hundreds of times, was this one simple realization, Philip. People actually already knew what to do.
Yeah.
It turned out they didn't very often need a top-down, boss-centric set of instructions.
Mm,
What they really needed was the encouragement and the safety to trust their own true voice. And
mm.
that kind of when it struck me that maybe my own voice condition, which I've only up till then thought of as quite literally a pain in the neck,
Yeah, sure.
was maybe actually a gift
Mm,
or a blessing or an invitation to lead differently in
mm,
a way that gave other people a stronger voice. And over time, out of that, I completely ended up reversing the way I thought about leadership. And for me today, long story short, leadership is about dispersing power, not collecting it.
mm.
It's about making other people's voices stronger. And then, right to the core of what you're passionate about, just to wrap that up, I really said to myself, well, why can't we use the place of work to help everybody at work find their own true voice, self
Mm,
actualize, and be comfortable and confident and safe and secure exactly as they are. And that completely changed for me how I view work and what I thought the place of work could become.
mm. Well, that's incredible. There's so many thoughts I want I want to I could easily dive into there, Kevin, but how first and foremost, how empowering and just absolutely in a way awe-inspiring that you were able to take uh the hand you were dealt and spin it into something that probably took your company in a direction that, I mean, obviously it's working out pretty well for you. And it's you took that thing that could have very well derailed you from continuing on in that leadership role, harnessed it and used it in a way that then turned the entire mindset and the entire leadership structure of a corporation that's been around since before the Civil War, as you said. And actually, not only did it work, but I'm guessing it really strengthened that workplace and was a catalyst for your company coming out of that housing market crash around 2010.
Yeah, yes, to all of that. I got really lucky, but I was able to, in that, I was able to see in what quite literally is technically a physical disability. I was able to see this blessing and opportunity to be someone different, to change how I led, to change how I thought about leadership, and to really change the entire mission of the company. Our mission at Hancock Lumber today, first mission, literally is to improve the lives of the people who work in our company. That's job number one, by helping them feel trusted, respected, valued, and heard.
Mm.
And so, yeah, all of that, prior to my voice conviction, I don't know, others would have to say, but, good manager and our company got good results. But what started happening after we flipped our focus was the performance of the company just took off. And it took off as the outcome of a higher calling. The company started to soar on the wings of thriving humans at work. What ended up happening is our engagement scores went really through the roof. They run now about 90%, meaning 9 out of 10 people at our company confidentially surveyed will describe their work experience as personally fulfilling and meaningful. Gallup will tell us the national average for that metric is 33%.
Wow.
1 out of 3. And one of ways, people who work spend decades at work, decades of their lives at work. And for that to be only an economic exercise in the 21st century, this is not the industrial revolution. In the 21st century, that's just not necessary and not okay. Work can be something much more than just an economic exercise.
100% it can. And the old adage, if you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life, right? I mean, that it's something that people sort of throw out there and say all the time, but it's very true. And another thing that comes to mind as you're talking about this is earlier you mentioned that the employees at the company were able to sort of trust their own instincts and build a little bit of confidence in what they do and what they know and how they can contribute to the company. But in an even simpler form than that, to me, it seems like, especially when you get people in a company like Hancock Lumber, I'm guessing you have a lot of people that have been there a very, very long time, and they get in those roles and sometimes feel like, oh geez, I've got to go run this up the flagpole, even though I know what the right answer. You're able to avoid a little bit of that too by relinquishing, as you said, some of that power, empowering that person to say, hey, let's come with these solutions together and let's empower you to help these solutions out. I mean, you're cutting so many potential points of stress and anxiety out of the situation that in probably 9 out of 10 cases with most people in a larger company probably have to put up with on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, had a lot of fun with that idea you mentioned at the end. Why does work have to be stressful? Most people would say their job is stressful, but that stress is not really necessary, and it's not typically productive. Our company's very competitive, very driven, has very high standards, but that doesn't mean it needs to be stressful. It's really the opposite. Can you create an environment where people can just relax and feel amazing exactly as they are? One of my biggest goals in terms of the culture of our company is really built into this simple statement: nothing has to change for you to be amazing. Nothing has to change for you to be amazing. You're already amazing. Now, sure, you're going to want to grow, you're going to want to develop, you're going to want to learn, you're going to want to evolve, but on that entire journey, you're already amazing. You mentioned in the intro, I spent a lot of time out on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation in South Dakota, and they have phrase out there that I learned that I really love, and it refers to children. The Lakota will say that children are Wakan Yeja, which means holy one. Love that thought. So every child is sacred. And we all would think about that and say, yeah, that's true. But if that's true, every adult's also sacred.
Sure.
And we generally try to have cultures for treating young children as sacred. But somehow when people grow up, our organizations lose that focus. So, but why not at the place of work try to treat everyone as sacred, amazing, exactly as you are. And as people feel safe, that's when they thrive. It's also when they'll say what they think. This has been another really big benefit of the cultural change. We tried to make it safe for people to say exactly what they think at work. I call that the answers to the test. The people who work in a company know exactly what those companies' strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities are because they live it every day. All you need to do is make it safe for people to say what they actually think. And when they do that, they bring you right to the opportunities. Now, for that culture to be safe, the leaders have to really change the way they listen. Or as I like to say, to talk about, rethink the very purpose of listening. Before my voice conviction, upon reflection, I found that I was typically listening at work to judge what I was hearing and whether or not I agreed or disagreed. We tried to completely eradicate that model. And what we like to say now at Hancock Lumber is listening is for understanding, not judgment. So if you and I were in a huddle at Hancock Lumber, if you were to share a thought and I was the senior executive in the room, what I would like to try to say in response to anything you said, Philip, is simply this: thanks for sharing that. I don't need to validate it. I don't need to reject it. I don't need to qualify it. I don't need to redirect it. I can just honor what you said exactly as you said it. And I also think in that approach, we have to give up kind of this organizational quest for a single truth where we want everyone to think the same way. What a terrible idea.
Sure.
You think about it. If we have 650 people in our company, there are 650 different work realities, and none of them are right, none of them are wrong. They're all just real to that individual. And rather than fight that, I really have come to embrace that and try to honor that.
Yeah. No, that's incredible. I think it's easy for companies nowadays, especially in the climate we're in right now. Now, you work in an industry where there's a lot of jobs that you offer that probably really can't be done remotely, right? There are certain things that have to be done in an in-person situation, but there are definitely parts of your company that probably can be done, remotely. So I think it's very easy for companies to say things like, our number one mission is to empower our employees, right? As Hancock's lumber mission is, and to the point that you just made, we want to make sure that we're listening to understand, not to judge and make decisions based on the information that we're given. It's very easy to say that, but the proof's kind of in the pudding, right? The proof's in the fact that, as you said, 9 out of 10 people at your company would say that their work does fulfill them and empowers them. And even more so, listening with intent allows that, and listening for understanding really allows that individuality of all of those 650 people to come out, and the possibilities then sort of become endless for a company like yours, right? I mean, you can go in any one direction. You have a plethora of new ideas and new thoughts and new areas of excitement and passion that can just drive your company forward without any one person really having to do anything but have an idea, an opinion, a thought, a hope, a dream, and to voice it to someone who's going to receive that in a way that's going to be very welcoming, heard, and then taken and ran with, if that's what it comes down to.
Yeah, that's so well said. I think when leadership is shared, the weight of leadership gets lighter for everybody, and also, and more uplifting also to what you talked about. We started making better decisions. This was the other big change. In the old model, when a few people were calling all the shots, we got some of those shots right and we got some of those shots wrong. One thing I've noticed in the last few years is we're making a lot better decisions, and that's because I think we're getting more voices involved in decision making, and having everybody be invited to participate in what we're doing, where we're going, how we're going to make our company better. And also, as you said, when you push power out, the company just gets much more agile and it moves in faster, more dynamic, more exciting ways. And when you think about it, it makes sense. Every single person in our company knows more about their job than I do.
Yeah.
Because they live it every day.
Right.
And so to really make it safe for people to own their part of the company and lead it and improve it, it just, when you think about it, makes a lot of sense. When you think about the traditional model of command and control, power to the center, leadership by a few, hierarchy, it's actually not a great model.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of rules and tension to enforce it. I cannot remember the last time I saw someone raise their voice at our company. I'm not saying it never happens, but I can't remember the last time I saw it. And I've also started talking about a goal that's a little tricky to explain, but it's this. I think the whole idea of getting in trouble at work is a bad idea. I really would like to create a culture where you can't get in trouble if you're at the company because you enjoy it. If you're working to help your team and yourself grow and something doesn't go right, no problem. Everybody's going to learn from it. Everybody's going to fix it. Everybody's going to grow from it. So the whole idea of a mistake-free environment is kind of a silly idea too. There needs to be learning. But the other thing that happened to us is we started to free up that creativity is we actually got more accurate. We actually got more disciplined. We actually got better alignment around best practices. And safety coordinator, I think, when asked why, said it best. He said people are much more apt to support that which they help to create.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. That's very true. And, talking about that old model, um, you mentioned, we got stuff right, but we got stuff wrong. And I bet the wrong moved the needle a lot more than the right. It just did so in the wrong direction. As a business owner
Yeah.
myself, I've found that, you make the right decision, but when you make the wrong ones, it feels a lot worse compared to how the right ones make you feel in the better direction. And by avoiding that and coupling that with what you just said, that people are more likely to support something that they truly feel like they had a hand in building. I mean, the compounding interest there, so to speak, is vast, especially in a company your size.
Yeah, no, well, I'm not even going to add to that. I totally agree with what you just said.
Yeah. Well, and before I give you an opportunity to tell people a little bit more about your books and things and where they can find them and where they can learn more about you, I do want to ask you real quick too, because all this has been so, again, as a business owner, I'm sitting here like taking as many mental, physical notes as I possibly can, Kevin. I'm kind of soaking this up. This is incredible. But um, talk to me a little bit about how the reservation in South Dakota has sort of played a role in this. Did that start around the time that your voice condition started? Was that part of that journey, figuring out how to change your leadership style? Where does that come into play for you?
Yeah. So by 2012, the economy had gotten better, and I could see our company was going to be okay, but my voice was still a mess, and I've been kind of in overdrive to help the company get through that period. I had this feeling I needed to assert myself a little bit more, something that I resisted at first, but I'm really glad I gave into. I always had growing up a love affair with the American West, and particularly historically, the second half of the 19th century, when our nation's western expansion and manifest destiny ran into the Plains Indians. Anyway, in the summer of 2012, I picked up a copy of National Geographic, and the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation was the cover story. Pine Ridge is kind of the biggest, poorest, most remote, most historically disenfranchised of all Sioux reservations on the northern plains. And I read that article and made an impulsive decision to go there. I said, I want to see what life is like for the people who live there.
Wow.
And one trip turned into two, and I've now been there over 24 times, have all kinds of friends there. But the tie-in is this. At Pine Ridge, I met an entire community that did not feel fully heard. It felt as if a piece of their authentic voice had been pushed to the side. So just summarize that, from my own voice condition and my time at Pine Ridge, I had really 5 personal learnings. First, for my voice condition, I actually suddenly understood what it was like to not feel fully heard, because I couldn't always say what I wanted to say.
Sure.
Second, at Pine Ridge, it dawned on me that there are lots of ways for humans to lose a piece of their authentic voice in this world.
Mm.
Third, that got me thinking about the very meaning or purpose of human life on Earth. And I said to myself in that context, well, maybe it's to self-actualize. Maybe the one thing all humans have in common is we're just here doing the best we can to come into our own authentic voice. But then fourth, I started thinking about the impact that leaders had historically on helping people come into their own voice. And while human history has had some amazing leaders, I concluded in total that leadership had a pretty negative influence on helping people self-actualize, that leaders had often intimidated, directed, controlled, and exploited the voices of others, which finally, that's when I started to see my own voice condition maybe as an invitation to lead in a completely different way. And because I was blessed to be running a company, I had the opportunity to not just think about this, but to actually try it. And we've been at it for a decade, and really transformed our company. It gave me a lot of kind of confidence or push to try to get out there and do things like talk with you to help expand these ideas.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And just to follow up on that, one more question, because as a lifelong mater, I'm very familiar with your company, and I've certainly noticed the growth in the last decade, especially in I'm based in Southern Maine now, so I've noticed some new things popping up in that decade. How has because I want to give you an opportunity to kind of pat yourself on the back here a little bit, Kevin, because I think I kind of know some of the answer to this question. The growth in that decade that you've seen, the expansion and growth of your company that you've seen, how does that compare to prior decades worth of growth for your company?
I'm gonna answer that out of love for the ideas and really honoring the people in our company. In that 10-year period, our financial performance from say 2012 to 22 was bigger and better than the company's total financial performance from 1848 to 2011.
That's incredible. And I knew that was the answer, but I just needed to hear you say it. That's absolutely incredible. Congratulations to you and all of the people at Hancock Lumber that made that happen. That's something to be incredibly proud of. And again, a lot of companies can say that they do some of these things, and empowering and investing in their employees and their employees' ideas and their values and things like that. But to actually do it, you get 10 years that's bigger than the entire history of the company combined prior to that 10 years. That's incredible. Congratulations.
Thank you. And of course, that's not to say, we're still superhuman. I'm exceptionally human. And I talk about this a lot just because I don't want to come across with our own people as naive or idealistic. Just because we have a set of goals around how we want people to experience work does not mean every minute of every day, every corner of the company, we live up to that. And I constantly catch myself not living up to, in a particular moment, those values. So it's real important to say that a great place to work, quote unquote, is never a perfect place to work. In fact, a great place to work recognizes its own imperfections and is willing to see them in the mirror, call them what they are, and keep working at them with a goal that's got everybody's benefit in mind.
That's fantastic. Very, very well said. Very, very well said. That's great. I've got two more quick questions for you, Kevin, that I like to ask every guest on the podcast. But before we get to that, I want you to tell people a little bit about how they can find, like where they can find your books that talk about a lot of these different things that we've talked about tonight, and where they can find you to learn a little bit more about not only the work you're doing with Hancock Lumber, but these leadership principles that you're working on and sharing with people.
Yeah, thank you. I've got a website simply titled The Business of Shared Leadership.
Perfect.
And there's all kinds of resources there. This talk, when you post it, will be there. And you can see and access or book my books there, and you can reach me there. Then you can also find all 3 books on Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, and so forth. And just really quickly, the Not for Sale book kind of chronicles my early travels to Pine Ridge for those that might be interested. The second book, The Seventh Power, is really about how our company went about rethinking leadership and dispersing power. And the third book, 48 Whispers, is a collection of short meditations really around the idea of becoming the change you wish to see in the world. It's designed to be an empowerment book. And if you want the world to be a different place, become what you want it to be. It's about really looking inward for strength, not outward.
Wonderful. That's fantastic. And we'll make sure we have those links in the show notes here so that people can easily access those and learn more about that. And it turned out to be a perfect segue here to the first of our last 2 questions here, Kevin. The last thing you just said. My first question for you here in these final 2 questions is, what is your definition of strength?
Great question. I'm gonna say self-awareness and really being willing in all situations to look inward for the learning, inward for the change, and inward for the progress.
Yeah. Fantastic. Great. There's no wrong answers here, but that's fantastic.
Sure.
That's incredible. The final question I have for you, Kevin, is what is your true purpose in life?
Yeah, I would say it's to find and live with my own true, authentic voice, which is always a moving target because across a lifetime we're evolving. So it's never something that's static or you can take for granted. My purpose is to try to be the only authentic version of me they'll ever be, and create a culture around me that makes it safe for other people to do the same.
That's fantastic. And the one thing I love about asking that question, Kevin, is usually the answer people give, they've given a plethora of examples of how they are fulfilling that true purpose in the interview that we just had. And this is another example of that. So thank you for that. And thank you again so much for joining me and having this conversation. It's been selfishly, it's been incredible for me. I'm really jacked up right now. I'm really inspired right now. And I can't wait to share this with people. So thank you.
Well, me too. I loved it. And thank you for having me. Thank you for all the work you're doing to help people find and live their authentic voice. I'm really glad we're connected.
Same here, Kevin. Thank you very much for that. I really appreciate that. And everyone out there, I say this at the end of most of the episodes. I'm not sure how you couldn't have found value in this conversation, but if you did find value in this conversation, please be a friend and tell a friend. Share it with someone you know, love, and care about so that we can get this message out to more people, because this is some inspiring stuff, and we definitely want more people getting this message. Another thing that helps with that is giving a 5-star rate and review wherever you listen to these podcasts. That's always very helpful. And making sure that you are subscribed on social media, subscribed on YouTube, subscribed to our channels on your podcast, your go-to podcast platform, so that you're always getting updates on new episodes when they come out. And would love to hear from you all. If you have suggestions, if you yourself want to be on the podcast, or you have questions to send into any of our guests or anything like that, you can always reach out to us, and all that information is in the show notes. So Kevin, thank you again so much for this conversation. This was incredible. And everyone else out there, go make it a great week, and we'll see you back here next week on the Strength for Your Purpose podcast.